Guys, welcome back to day 4 of the Fox Body 8-second, 8-day build. El Toro is coming along. We got the cage knocked out, the engine's going back together. Today we're gonna drop the engine and transmission right in a car so we can get a drive shaft measured, and then it's go time. We gotta do an anti-roll bar, we gotta weld up the battle boxes, we got a whole ton of stuff to do, and then obviously the rest of the car. John's working away at getting this. We're gonna burn the midnight oil the next few nights to try and get ahead of things so that if we run across any issues, we have a little bit of leeway. Bradenton and FL2K, that race is coming up quick, and we actually still have to transport this down to Florida. So just because it's done doesn't mean the hard work's not over. Got a lot to do, we gotta still dyno it. Hopefully nothing goes wrong, wish us luck. Hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button because we have a lot more coming your way.
Doing some workouts today.
Getting some workout. Don't make me drop this, guys. Fresh unit right there. It is a 180 straight cut power glide that is built by Performance. One of the cool things about Performance is when you buy a transmission, they build it for your combo. Not only do they build it for your combo, they also dyno it. What they do there is they hook up fluid to it, run it through all the gears, make sure everything shifts and there's no leaks and stuff like that. When they do that, they usually will set the pressures on converter charge and line pressure. That way you don't have to worry about pushing thrusts out. Why that's important is because turbo car, nitrous car, NA car, supercharged car, they all act a little bit differently, especially with the style converter they're running and everything. So to have that set up ahead of time is a huge plus. You don't have to worry about it because otherwise you're kind of shooting in the dark.
Nobody likes to put a tranny in and then have to pull it back out because something's not right.
They'll pull a motor out when they push a thrust out. So
yeah.
That's a pretty common problem with 400s and power glides is pushing thrust out because you have too much charge pressure. So basically what it's doing there is it's taking too much pressure and it's pushing the converter forward and shoving it into the motor, and that it starts to push on the the crank, and it'll knock the thrust bearing out, which is obviously something you don't want. So that early in the turbo days, people were doing that non-stop until they started to understand it, and then they came out with like these regulators and stuff, and they work well, but like to have one set up that you don't have to mess with is the best thing possible. So plus Performance builds some of the fastest transmissions in the world. All the radial guys use them, and Dave's just an overall good guy, so that's why we just have him build everything we do.
Well, that's getting sealed up.
It's pretty close.
Looking like a Coyote again.
It's looking like an engine.
We got
So we went with an SFI new case. Basically, nobody has to worry about losing their legs. Power glides are notorious for blowing up real bad, and the stock cases seem to be a lot weaker than the 400, so we just went with a nice case from the get-go. What do you think, James?
That's real nice.
It's almost too nice.
It's almost too nice for once. Yeah.
But honestly, transmission problems like plague so many people. I'd just rather do it right the first time. This is another Greg slack converter. Greg is the man. Mark Rogers, who races Ultra Street, runs his converter and his mod motor. And Mark basically says the Greg slack converter is one of the reasons why he's ahead of the pack as far as ET and why his car is so fast. So
Little speed secret.
little speed secret. Greg doesn't market himself real hard, but he builds some of the best stuff there is.
Spacer for the Coyote now?
Yep. Most converter companies will use a standard small block Chevy spacing on their converters. So like on the LS you need a spacer adapter. Same with the Coyote. They call it a small block Ford adapter. Apparently Ford left it the same throughout the years, but it's got a real small pilot bearing diameter, and then it's got adapts to that small block Chevy size.
How's the video coming along, Chad?
Great.
Working on it?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. That's how you produce 8 videos in 8 days.
Lots of coffee.
Lots of coffee.
Check it out.
Dang, a
New
fresh.
best dad ever shirt.
Dang. Got the seat mount in here?
I'm working, one's in here, I'm working on some things to bolt, or weld on here to bolt from the back of the seat.
Nice.
But I was also kind of just gandering since I missed out this weekend.
Cookie break.
Cookie break. Oatmeal chocolate chip. Best cookie ever made. Ever invented. Okay, so let's go over the cooling system on this thing. If you've ever messed with a Coyote from the factory, they have all kinds of crazy stuff going on. They have like a bypass hose that has thermostat and stuff in it. Just like every engine that we build, a race application, even like drag week, race week stuff, we always do away with all that complicated stuff. On a race motor, you typically just have no need for a thermostat. There's like a old wives' tale going around that you need a thermostat to slow down the water so that it has more time to cool. Completely false. Unfactual, completely false. Typically the reason why if you pull a thermostat out and it gets hotter is because there's like a bypass built in and the thermostat seals against that. So a lot of times if you pull a thermostat out, it'll go right to the bypass and not go through the proper channels in the system. So it's actually not cooling correctly in the rest of the system. You can either weld that or plug those typically. But definitely the thermostat has no bearing on how well a cooling system cools. The only thing it does is it allows it to heat up faster. And for emissions and for fuel mileage, a little bit hotter motor will typically get better gas mileage. You can read articles about this, like the big NASCAR and the big circuit cars and stuff. They move tremendous amounts of coolant, 100 plus gallon per hour range. And obviously there's nothing slowing them down. Basically, as soon as that water hits the fins on a typical radiator, it's done about as much as it can do. The thing that matters on cooling is how far it travels across the fins. So basically how long the radiator is, and then if it's a dual pass, you know, how much of that it goes past is basically what determines the cooling on it. And then obviously the flow on the water pump and then the fans, but definitely not thermostat. With that being said, we're gonna run this very simple. We're gonna have a remote mount pump. I prefer that to have a remote mount electric pump, or block mounted, doesn't really matter, but in the name of space constraints and the fact that the pumps on these things are like $1 billion. This is gonna serve as the inlet right here. This is where the factory water pump would go. So we have two number 12s coming in here. This is a prototype part we made, as I talked about earlier, but that's gonna be where the inlet goes. And then the water is going to travel through the block, through the heads, and then out of these factory passages here. We also make these, they adapt to AN. They'll go to 10, 12, 16, 20 as far as adapting goes. And they're just going to bolt right up. They're an O-ring seal. They reuse the factory gasket on the top of the head. On this side, this is typically where the heater would go. But in the name of kind of how like a corner cooling system goes, we're going to get the flow out of both sides. That way there's no hot pockets in the engine if we can avoid it. Some companies go as far as to do a crossover in the back. That's probably something we'll experiment with later, especially if we have any issues, but a lot of people run this real basic setup here and do real well with it. So this is a number 16. We're gonna run that over to the top of the radiator. This number 10, we're gonna weld a port also in the top of the radiator on the side. And then the bottom hose is gonna feed the water pump, which is gonna feed this here on the front. Water pump into the front, this is the inlet, goes through the motor, comes out, back to the top of the radiator. The nice thing is we can turn that on and the fans between rounds, especially when it's hot in Florida, and cool it off real quick. I mean, you can turn a car with electric fans and pump around in a matter of minutes versus waiting an hour to make another pass.
In the spirit of Florida, got that Freedom Factory shirt on, huh?
Freedom Factory.
Nice.
I think we'll be real close to the Freedom Factory when we race it.
Real close.
Feel like good vibes. Real close. Real close. Next door. John's got this thing all ready to rock and roll. He's got, this is a Coyote turbo kit that we originally built. We made a short run of about 10 of them. We haven't made any more. I think we're out of them right now. But really nice kit. You'll see the rest of it here later. But it's all back purged stainless, fits really nice, especially on a Fox body with the narrow frame rails. It fits just fine. Check it out.
Woo!
Some 26.8 Pro
Fresh
bracket
shoes.
radials, so we can go in those little baby tire classes.
Yeah, they are little.
See how hard we can make this look. Yeah, I'm positive. Started like that. All right.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. tires engage. Woo!
Ready for that Bradenton prep.
Dang. Victor, you better glue it. It's been a while since I've had an 8-inch tire, Brian. It looks tiny.
Looks real weird.
Oh man, that thing would be sitting the back skirts on the ground. Looking like a Pac-Man. Just wop, 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 wop. Andy's old hatchback GT, when he'd launch it, it would like squat the back end way down. It looked like Pac-Man because its skirts were like just barely above the ground. The most important part. Made in the good old US of A.
New breast cancer awareness steam vent kits, short run for the month. Getting them sealed up.
That's gonna sit nice. Sit really nice.
Yeah, it's gonna look good.
Might have to cut that. Preemptively cut that fender lip. Yeah, it looks good. I'm a little afraid that I don't think I'm gonna get them measured right. Stick out a little bit. I only like to worry about hitting the bottom. That's why I said we'll just preemptively cut the tire lip. Yeah. But it's also slammed right now too. It'll be cool. I'm excited. Excited to race into that FL2K now.
Yeah, you start seeing wheels, tires, you're like, oh yeah.
It's gonna make the car look way cooler than it does.
What do you think about that?
None better than a new pair of shoes.
Woo!
Just a little guy.
Yeah, it's real little. What you got going on, Mitch?
Trying to bend it. Need a hammer.
So Mitch is working on a seat back mount. Got that eyeball calibrated.
Oh yeah. Now I gotta try and hit it and not bend everything else.
What you got going on over here?
Columns, man.
Columns and columns and columns, huh?
Columns. 100 columns.
100.
Woo, what a deal.
I know Doug said he wanted to be able to just space it for different people. Like,
Yep.
I don't know how much closer it's gonna get because it's not mounted at all in the bottom.
Almost ready to go in, huh?
Pretty much.
What else you got? Anything else really?
We're gonna check torque converter stuff and make sure we're
Do all
good
the
there before
spacing,
we go all the
everything?
way in.
Sure.
The spacing and that stuff, but
Wheel 2 coming in hot.
Well, those are pretty much a 28, right?
That's 275/60.
Yep.
That's 26/8. Oh god.
Nice.
Woo! Dang, she looks good.
Real
Now we gotta do
nice.
something about that front.
Yeah.
What do you think, Johnny?
It's gonna be a bad unit.
Bad unit.
Looking real nice out in the sun.
We got a leak. I like to clamp with the Fox body weld right here.
Woo! Rolling deep in there.
she rode a lot better than the last time we moved her around.
Hello.
Little low on the tire, but we made it. Good thing we didn't have to go far. There we go. That'll work.
Coyote meet Fox body. What do you think, Gabe?
Looking good.
Gabe's a proud owner of a Fox body also, so he can get down on the whole deal.
This one looks about identical to mine. Minus the cage and the seats and the fuel cell and the suspension and the brakes.
But other than that, pretty much identical.
Pretty much the exact same car.
That power line's super light though. I wonder what the whole combo weight was.
But that Motion Raceworks lift plate,
Coming in handy.
real clutch.
I'll be scratching that paint now.
Which part? The red part, the black part? The...
I was actually talking about the engine.
Oh.
Who's got the Silverado out there revving it up?
Oh, really?
Were you just revving a car up? Oh, was that Wally?
I'm not sure it's gonna pick up on this.
Or a broken cylinder?
Yeah.
Alright, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I set this thing down thinking it was an LS engine. Forget they got these paper mache oil pans on it.
Not supposed to be like that.
Not supposed to be like that.
Probably a little close to the pickup now.
Probably a little too close, so we'll go ahead and pop it back out just for good measure. I'm glad I checked that before I got all the way in.
Yeah.
Brian always comes in when I do something stupid just to laugh at me.
So it was a good thing that the oil pan got dented a little bit.
I mean, there's always a silver lining.
It's not ideal, but
So we need to we never put a turbo oil drain in this thing, so we got some work to
this
do.
is a perfect time to do it.
Yep. Machine by Lucas Willie.
That looks good.
Did you do that one or did Herm do that one?
No, Herm didn't bring these. Herm runs about 3% and 1% scrap.
1% of the 3% or 1%? So he runs 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Ooh, that's a tight fit.
Yes, it is.
Nailed it. Oh, my hand! The old drill bit. Extend your build time by up to 32%.
It's super handy having a machine shop
6 feet away.
right there.
What's the pan made out?
Unobtainium, barely. Forgot to put an oil drain in it. We went to put the motor in, I'm like, oh! And I collapsed the pan. So
And what?
I dropped the pan on the ground. And so
Jesus Christ, Doug.
I'm an amateur at that.
Fine books, fine books.
Pizza guy?
Now it's licensed, bro.
Dang.
Now hopefully it seals. So we actually redesigned our valve cover breather fittings. We haven't released it yet, but hopefully around the time of the video or shortly after, we redesigned it so that it has an open passage, and you can use these for oil drains. So if you don't know how to weld, or you don't want to weld on something for some reason, 3 holes and then open up the middle, and you can basically create a turbo oil drain type of setup. And it's got no ring, so seals nicely.
Cleaning parts and cleaning parts.
It's an expensive parts washer.
Yeah, real expensive.
Somebody with a little bit of boost, man.
Ooh, boost delivery.
Going back on.
All right.
Small hiccup.
All the sensors in the back of the head.
Oh,
Tracking down a little bit.
How's the day, what are you on, day 2 video? Looking good? Alright. So if the people haven't yet, what should they do, Chad?
Like and subscribe. You got any pizza in your pocket today? Or?
Doesn't even have pockets in his shirt.
Sad.
Double crab ragoons. Wait, need one?
Getting a little hungry. You need snack or risky.
how you looking over there?
You put a
just trying
couple
to
crab
get this
ragoons
plate
in your pocket one time, and you're labeled that guy.
Okay, hold on. There she is, fell in.
Oh,
Bingo!
Good thing I was here. You guys would have never got that in.
thanks, Chad.
Yeah, Chad. Good thing you were here, Chad.
Coming in
Hey,
clutch.
you know, best chat ever.
Best Chad ever.
We're off?
Go
Ooh.
down a little bit there. Woo! We out. Is this last time she's going in?
You always gotta jinx everybody all the time.
Well, I didn't know if I had to come back out again. I was just asking.
What you know about that?
Those are nice. Who installed those?
Who installed them?
Chad Daddy?
You are about 5 minutes.
Where you been, Lucas?
Working.
What you been working on?
Working?
Whoa.
Drive shaft wheels. CO2 bottle brackets. LSA throttle body cable. Oh, what the John? You Jim, you bumped it.
Oh no, that was Doug. He dropped it.
Doug! You son of a...
Oh, that's gonna be a joy to get the diaper in there. Oh, what do you got going on there? A turbo kit.
So we're measuring for the drive shaft. Gonna be obviously an integral piece. It's gonna be 51 and 5/8. Call Strange real quick, get that ordered. Then we gotta mock up the anti-roll bar and we should be able to pull the rear end out. Do you think we look better or worse than Ruby right now?
I would say better.
I don't know, they got wiring in there, so we ain't even touched wiring.
Yeah, I
yet.
guess it's a give and a take. We got a windshield though.
James just sent me this, I said.
We don't have a rear window.
Oh, we don't got a rear window, but Ruby's supposed to be at FL2K with the new rev.
Yep,
Oh shoot.
allegedly. More parts. We picked up this kind of pre-made kit, ready to go thing for a Fox body from Team Z. They have a nice anti-roll bar. This thing, light car, not making tons of horsepower. Should be plenty for right now. I think it's pretty stout for what it is, and we'll get the job done. We're gonna go ahead and hold it up, mock it up, get everything kind of tacked in place, and then pull the rear end out, and we'll finish the rest of the welding end of it. So, and then we'll weld some tabs on the rear end while it's up. It already those tabs are for a Team Z integral bar on the back here, Joe.
Imagine that.
Man, every once in a while we get lucky in life.
Are you gonna try to C-clamp it again?
Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna turn this. Don't hold on to it. Try and make it as even as possible. I think it just kind of rolled around along the bottom of that frame right there. I think those tabs will be alright. We can always put some more on later, right?
Right.
Oh boy.
That's all gonna light on fire when he starts welding that frame.
Oh, hold on. Oh yeah, it's gonna be terrible, huh?
It's gonna burn in there. It's gonna be gross.
Smell like piss in the mouse house.
Yeah.
I had the worst metal.
James is gonna have this ridiculous 30-minute time.
We're gonna need a
lapse.
time lapse for this.
Y'all are gonna be able to smell us welding this thing through
Yeah.
the TV. You might do a time lapse of John putting this transmission jack up.
We're gonna be here for a while.
Keep hanging on this.
Yeah, 16 minutes later.
You're still recording?
Yeah.
Is
I'm
this
gonna give you all the
Is
content.
this revenge
Jeb.
for the Bald Regal videos?
Yeah.
Chad's gonna be like, there's 4 hours to watch. Yes, Chad.
And now a word from our sponsors. Come back. Still moving.
Still here.
Almost there.
Oh my god, I almost got it in the face.
So you're gonna get that all tacked up and welded in?
Yeah, just gonna make sure it's still loose. So the important part is if you get these brass bushings or bronze bushings as you're welding it, make sure it still floats like really well. So you just kind of start tacking around and making sure your plates aren't pulling a bunch of ways. And then you don't start welding at the tacks because that might break it and move it. So I'll put a tack on the back side and see if it stays, and then put a tack on the next corner, see if it stays, and then just keep going. Finishing her up, I got one little strip left to go.
Nice.
So what I did is I tacked it on all the corners, and then I put tacks in between that, each time. I think I just talked about it earlier, but I just made sure that was nice and loose. I remember the first time I've done one of this style with the bronze bushing, I tried to TIG weld it, so you put so freaking much heat in it. And as it's just hard to make it not pull one way or the other. So once I got it tacked, like I think it'd be 3 on each side, I came back and I just welded strips in between them and then bounced around, and that just kind of kept the heat off of everything. And like, look how free
Nice
moving
and
that is.
smooth.
If your anti-roll bar doesn't move at least this free, you're gonna start binding up suspension. That's when you start to unload. Because when the car's trying to separate, if it's struggling to work against the anti-roll bar, it's gonna unload.
Find the car up,
That's
being
like,
happy.
I remember I fought that a lot on early cars I messed with. You want everything to be as free moving as possible. It's done. And then the other trick is you can just take a blowgun and, because basically those bronze bushings have oil impregnated into it, and if you get it too hot, it'll actually boil the oil right out of it too. So in between welds, I'll just, and that keeps it from cooking the oil out of the bearings. The oil in the bearings is what lubricates it over time so that it doesn't like seize up. So it could be free moving today, but if it has no oil in that, it might start to gall later and not be very bearing-like. So a little tip for you guys. Most of you don't know that there's oil built into the bronze bushing.
Just about done putting the low car transmission dipstick in.
Nice.
They're tightened up. See if we can get it in there. So with the low car dipstick tube, you put there's a seal and a quick connect piece that goes through it, and then for Power Glide there's a little spacer that's angled, and then just a nut, tighten it down. She's all in and tight, and we just gotta lower it in and put it in from the top. I can't get it through here. It just quick connects to the bottom and does the same thing at the top.
Gotta go shopping for some parts.
Other side, but
Gotcha.
Got it. Intake port's all sealed up.
Yep, I think we'll have the intake off and on quite a few times tomorrow, next couple days. Cover those.
Real fox body guy these days.
Yep, really getting it dialed in.
Gotta love MIG welding factory semi-rusty floors.
Right when we thought we had it, we were able to seal it all up, not so much. Had to pull the little bulkhead back out. Little firewall, I guess.
This got a little bit loose. We might have to rivet that in just for a little support there. Alright guys, I'm beat. Me and John cranked this thing out today, and Andy and everybody else. We got new torque boxes in, most of the way welded. We'll finish them up in the morning. Just a little bit of steam. We got the rear end out. We got a lot of stuff stripped off the bottom. Motor and tranny are in. The drive shaft's measured. New wheels and tires are mounted. Cranking. We're cranking. It's only Monday. That's day 4. So we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they're saying the drive shaft should show up from Strange Friday morning. So our goal is to have everything else ready to rock and roll, and we can throw a fake yoke in the transmission if we need to fire it up just to make sure everything runs. But I think by Friday we should have it running and ready to rock and roll. We got a bunch of stuff to do, but we're moving. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Day 5 is coming soon. Day 5, right? Day 5 is coming soon. Tomorrow, when you guys are watching it, and we'll just keep moving right along. Lovely Duckling, El Toro, we're doing it. So see you guys in Bradenton in a couple weeks.